Welcome to Eligent's TV exclusive panel on the Nigerian startup ecosystem. Today, we're diving into exciting landscape of opportunities available for founders. Nigeria stands out as a hub of innovation in Africa, with young, tech-savvy population, rising digital adoption, and vibrant sectors like fintech, agri-tech, health tech, and logistics. Whether you're a local entrepreneur or international founder looking for entry into African market, this discussion will uncover the key drivers, support systems, and strategic pathways to building a successful venture in Nigeria. Today, we have amazing lineup of speakers and experts who join us today and will have the insights on Nigerian startup ecosystem. And I would like to invite Kunle, if you can please introduce yourself and share a few words about your backgrounds and your introduction, please.
Thank you very much, Slava. I'm Kule. I am the co-founder of Coventi, a media tech company in Lagos, Nigeria. My background was in logistics and then in branding, legal, and now in entertainment and media. And that was why I started Coventi. Coventi is a movie distribution platform, movie distribution and marketing platform in Nigeria, catering to the needs of producers within our region, West Africa, and the whole of Africa as a whole. We've been doing this for close to 3 years. And then we've had amazing progress and amazing successes. We've had a lot of connections with a lot of hubs in Nigeria and Africa and a lot of resources. So it's been pretty good. I mean, it's a good time to run a business in Nigeria, especially, and in Africa as a whole. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much for your intro. And I would like to start our conversation. As we know that founders, they need intensive support, especially at the early stage of their business. And are we interested to know what kind of support Nigerian startup ecosystem offers to entrepreneurs? We also know that the Nigeria home of growing number of incubators, accelerators, and innovation hubs. How should early stage founders choose the right support program for their startups? What kind of resources, mentorship, funding, market access they expect to gain on what's available in Nigerian startup ecosystem? If you can contribute to this, please.
All right, thank you very much. Fortunately, I'm a product of one of those accelerators, incubators in Nigeria. So there are a lot of them in Nigeria. And one factor a founder or a group of founders should note when they are trying to get or engage this ecosystem is to understand the stage they are in as a business. So you need to know, are you just starting out? Are you just building your MVP? Do you have your MVP already? Are you in the market and gaining traction? Or have you raised in the past? So you need to know, you need to understand the stage where you are to understand the kind of hub or accelerators that can fit in, that can give you the right resources for your stage. So for example, for a startup that just finished building their products and they are ready to go to the market, it's good to know, connect to hubs like maybe a TVC Labs, a CC Hub, because they can get resources that would help them, better their products, understand how to go to the market, understand how to organize their team, understand their proposition, understand their economics, and understand how to manage everything else together. So this kind of ecosystem would help them to move forward from MVP to product launch to going to the market and then acquiring customers and all that. So knowing what you where you are very critical to know exactly the kind or the type of accelerator you need to have in the ecosystem. There are a lot of them.
Thank you so much for your answer. And we also know that universities, they play a significant role in supporting entrepreneurs. And I believe there are some maybe also university programs supporting early stage founders and entrepreneurs. But if you take a look in a general perspective, how can entrepreneurs leverage partnerships with Nigerian universities and some research hubs or institutions for access to talent, expertise, or some collaborations? Do you have such examples of university-driven programs, and what do we know about this?
Okay, thank you very much, Slava, for this question again. There, most founders in Nigeria are a product of one university or a research institute or the other. So that gives them a leverage already to understand what is obtained in these universities. And there are programs, a lot of organizations, startups to be able to connect to universities because a lot of young talents are doing amazingly well when it comes to technology and engineering. And this can support the growth of the startups. So a founder or a group of founder just need to understand what they want and how to connect to these universities. One thing that we do as a company is to go back to the universities that we are used to, or the universities that is within our environment, and then we talk to the people. We go to computer science department, engineering department. We talk to friends that are still students, that are that we know that are engineers. They can connect us with other engineers in the school, so that we can engage them as part-time engineers on our project and all that. So understanding your immediate schools within your environment, and understanding people that can connect you to other people within this ecosystem is very important. Another thing is on looking for accelerators or organizations that already do this, that can just help you to do that if you don't want to do that yourself. So, like I said, there are a lot of talent within this university ecosystem. You just need to fashion out a way to connect to them, and then be able to leverage their talents. And then from there, you can grow as a business. From there, you can also have a program that will take them in fully when they graduate, to be a full part of your team. So these pathways or resources are there. One just needs to understand how to connect them and how to develop a program around them to take them from point A to point B, in their business. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kunle, for your contributions. These very important and actual questions of support system for early stage founders and entrepreneurs in Nigeria. We also would like to move on and discuss the next question. I can ask Dr. Shola to join us and share a few words about your background and how do you relate to startup worlds.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And I'm excited about talking about my experience and background. So, my background is in computer science, and I have a master's degree in information technology also. So, I started up as an internet service provider engineer. So, we go about to install internet services. Then there was nothing like mobile phones. We were doing VSAT installation, all these big decisions outside. So from there, I went into software development, and later up, I picked up the doctorate in entrepreneurship and innovation adoption. So innovation is something that always put me on my toes. Why do people innovate, buy new technologies? Why do people leave old technologies? So that is something that is I'm poised to always know about. I'm poised to always learn from and see how it can improve the lives of people that are using those innovations. So presently, I'm the founder of Janos Clean Tech, where we're providing electric tricycles, and we're also converting petrol-powered tricycles to electric. So we're providing the solutions to gated communities, universities, and semi to rural urban areas. So it's been very exciting. We get to meet a lot of people. We get to go out a lot. We get to talk to riders, operators, stakeholders, unions, regulators, and all that. So that is what I do at the moment.
Thank you so much for your introduction. That was very interesting and insightful. And I would like to ask you a question about the future trends and innovation in Nigerian startup scene. We see the rise in interest with different disruptive areas like digital identity, climate tech, AI, financial inclusion, and many other disruptive technologies we see in recent years. So, how can entrepreneurs position their startups to lead in Nigeria's startup tech scene over the next 3 5 years? What are the trends to follow? Maybe what are the trends actually become an essential part of Nigerian startup ecosystem?
Oh, awesome. A very, very deep, thought-provoking question. So you will know BlackBerry, Nokia, Kodak, all these companies, they died not because they didn't have a good product, but they died because they were not too user-centric, or they were not forward-thinking with what the users we want in 3 years, with what the users we want in 5 years. Let's use Nigeria's reigning companies as an example. If you look at MoneyPoint, if you look at OPay, if you look at Max, these companies are doing something very well. They have an hardware that is their product, their core product, then they're layering a piece of software on top of that hardware. So I always tell people, you can't just build a software in Nigeria to sell. You can't really scale much. But if you have an hardware, then you layer a software on top of that hardware, then you can bundle the service together and you can approach a larger audience. So imagine OPay without the hardware, or imagine MoneyPoint without the hardware. So Apple would say, or people say generally, that if you're serious about software, you have to have your own hardware. So even if you don't have your own hardware or you don't have your own manufacturing lab, but you should be able to deliver your product with an hardware that is bundled to solve a specific niche of the market that you are looking at. So let's look at fintech, for example, which we just talked about. Let's look at climate tech. We are approaching climate tech as a company from the electric tricycle angle. So for us, the electric tricycle is the hardware. We find a way to ensure that it is affordable and it's easy for the riders, operators to buy them, either on financing or a long-term goal. But for us, the real business is not the tricycle. The business for us is the recharging of those batteries. The business for us is selling of electricity. So in the next 3 to 5 years, a lot of companies are going to be disrupted. Petrol stations are going to be disrupted. Transportation is going to be electrified. So many things are going to be using electricity. Electric vehicle prices are coming down. Rural communities, they also need access to capital. They need access to energy and so many other things. So in a nutshell, I see the next 3 to 5 years, I see a change in the next 3 to 5 years. Petrol prices or crude oil prices are coming down. And even at that, it's not really easy for the average business or even the countries to fuel their car with petrol. So there's a new trend that is emerging, wherein the old ways of doing things are no longer affordable, or they are no longer reliable. So if we want to approach climate change, we need to start reducing carbon emission. So if a business or somebody is trying to start a business, the focus might be on climate change. How can I reduce carbon emission? Which products can I sell that will help to reduce climate change? And identity is a very big problem on the internet. So digital identity is also very important. And you would also agree with me, you can't fully engage in digital identity without a piece of hardware to verify the identity. You can't go into fintech without an hardware. You can't go into climate change or climate tech products without an hardware. So my thesis is always find a way to create your own ecosystem, find a way to protect that ecosystem, and always think long term. So don't play the short term game of saying, oh, I want to quickly launch my own fintech product. I want to create a product where people can save money. 1,001 companies are already doing that. So what else can you do, or what extra product or services can you bring to the market that would make life easy for people, and would also, you also have a moat, something that will protect your business. So I always believe that future trend is change, disruption is constant. So when people say change is constant, what I think is disruption is constant. Disruption is that change. What we used to do before would no longer be obtainable in the next 3 or 4 years. So every smart entrepreneur should always be looking ahead and make sure that he or she is ahead of the curve.
Thank you so much for your contribution, Dr. Shola. It was very insightful discussion on what are the trends we may see in the Nigerian tech scene in next 3 5 years. We also would like to move on. And my next question, what entrepreneurs need to know about Nigeria in 2025, in these very interesting times, and what the practical insights or local nuances should entrepreneurs consider when they launch a startup in Nigeria today? Do we see any shifts, economical, cultural, or regulatory, that they should anticipate to remain agile and competitive?
Okay, thank you for the question again. So I always tell people when you're building a product, don't just sit in your office or don't just sit on your desk and be building. Once you have something that is fairly functional, go out there and talk to the customers. My doctoral thesis is about innovation adoption. Sorry, I didn't talk about that earlier. And there are two key elements in innovation adoption. The first one is perceived usefulness, and the second one is the perceived ease of use. So before anybody can say they want to use your product or they want to pay for your services, you also have to think for them. And you can't say if you build a solution for the North, it will also work well for the South, because the cultural differences of the North is different from the South in Nigeria, for example. So also the economic capacity. So if you build a product that works very well in Lagos, people are paying for it. Can the northern part of the country afford it? Then also is the regulatory angle. So it is very, very important to talk to customers, to talk to stakeholders. So two things, the perceived ease of use and the perceived usefulness. Customers must find this thing easy to use. Customers must find it useful. So when you have checked those two key important components, then you need to now scale down or go down to understand the cultural requirements. So I have a friend or a colleague that was bringing in electric tricycles. These electric tricycles can seat 6 passengers, and he was taking them to the north. But unfortunately, you can't sit face to face in the north because in a Muslim society, a man cannot sit and put his legs in between another person, which is not his wife. And even if the person is his wife, he can't be displaying emotions publicly. So the product failed, not because it wasn't cheaper, not because it wasn't better, but culturally it wasn't acceptable. So also there was a community where they drilled borehole for them. At the end of the day, the men in the community dismantled and destroyed the borehole equipment, the solar pumping part. When they were asked, they said their wives no longer go for long walks and men do not have time again to talk to themselves when they go and fetch water. So as important as it is to provide water for a community, you would realize that the fundamental nuance on that community was not taken into consideration before giving them the product. So essentially, Nigeria is a very rich and diverse country with over 200 or 300 economic groups. So you need to understand each market you want to go into. Let me give you another case in point. Our electric tricycles, when we started 2 years ago, we were focusing more on selling brand new tricycles. I was doing my spreadsheets, doing my presentations, going from one cooperative to the other. But at some point, somebody suggested that why don't we talk to the people that are actually riding these tricycles and understand what they want. So in my presentation, a young guy, semi-illiterate, what we will call a semi-illiterate, but he was very street smart. He said, "Doctor, you are promising us to buy a new tricycle, and the price is about 5 million naira. Apart from the fact that it's expensive for us to buy, what are we going to do with these ones that we're riding up and down? Are we going to throw all of them away?" I looked at the guy's face and was like, wow, I wasn't thinking. So when I got back to office, I started to do my research. And I realized that there are over 3 million tricycles in Nigeria. That is a green market because these people are already complaining that the cost of petrol is so expensive. So if you can convert the existing petrol power tricycle to electric, then you already have a market that you won't spend so much money, you won't spend so much energy trying to convince them that this product is useful, this product is easy to use. So the guy that I would say is not educated, but is the guy that's using the product. So in terms of the product usage, he is more educated than I am. So talking to customers, talking to economic groups, talking to cultural associations, talking to regulators is very, very important for every entrepreneur that is building anything in Nigeria.
Thank you so much. That was very insightful and interesting. I also would like to invite Ahmed to join us and make an introduction about yourself and share a few words about your background.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Ahmed Idris, and I am an entrepreneur. I'm also a professional product manager, and I'm a World Economic Forum global shaper. I help young people to get access to tech skills that empowers themselves and their communities. I also run an innovation hub, which support tech talent development, MSMEs and startups over the last 7 years. And it's a pleasure to be on this panel today.
Thank you so much for your introduction. And we discussed the Nigerian startup ecosystem, and we would like to touch some points about the future trends in innovation in Nigeria. So, what do you see as a rising trend or rising interest across the recent technologies, and what the technologies we may see as a kind of the leading trends in next 3 to 5 years? Do we see any perspectives on that?
Yes, so I think there are 3 to 4 basic technologies that I think we should look out to. With the first, obviously, which is AI, artificial intelligence, and also I think we need to, as a country, it's very important that we embrace new technology. You know, the the whole African continent was left behind during most of the industrial revolution, right? So, and now we're in the fourth industrial revolution. Technologies like blockchain, like IoT, entrenched or embedded in new solutions and products, and artificial intelligence, like I mentioned, are very crucial if we want to leapfrog into, the fourth industrial revolution by solving indigenous and local problems. So, I'll give you an example. So recently, a friend of mine who is a local software developer here in Nigeria, uh, designed and developed a local large model language (LLM). LLMs are used to train artificial intelligence, or they are models used to train artificial intelligence products. And that LLM is based on the indigenous languages in Nigeria. So it means that a young boy who speaks Igbo, or a young girl who speaks Yoruba, or a teenager who speaks Hausa, is not longer limited. You understand, in understanding or interacting with technology, with solutions that will help them, you understand, to actually make impact, learn and grow, and contribute to their society. It means that everybody will now have equal access to engaging with new product, new technologies, and also subsequently contributing to those new product and new technologies as well.
Thank you so much for your insights. That's very interesting and helpful for our audience to understand the future trends in Nigerian startup ecosystem. But now we are in 2025, and we also would like to know what's happening in 2025 in relation to entrepreneurial trends and situations. Can we give some practical advice or insights to entrepreneurs who aim to launch the business in Nigeria in 2025? Do we see any economic, cultural, or regulatory shifts or changes happening this year?
Well, one thing I'll always say is entrepreneurs should always look forward to solving real problems. There are a lot of indigenous problems that entrepreneurs need to look inwards and try to solve. We don't have to photocopy business models from Europe, from the US, and from other parts of the world. Entrepreneurs need to look inwards, look at the local challenges around them, and then try and solve them. But also, more importantly, entrepreneurs need to look and leverage at local data. Data is very important, and every day there are a lot of data points out there that we're interacting with, and we don't even know, right? So the last speaker talked about doing, speaking to your customers, engaging with your target audience. This is really, really true, and it's even more important, especially if you're trying to solve a local problem, right? And then my next advice will be for entrepreneurs to design for scalability, right? The world is a global stage. Your solution that you're building in Kano or in Abuja or in Akwa Ibom is something that could be used in the United States, in the United Kingdom, or even in Singapore in the Southeast Asia. So we don't have to stop, or narrow our thinking into, this present situation where we are only able to build solutions for the local environment, right? So I think in 2025 and beyond, entrepreneurs need to think bigger, think about scalability, but also they need to stay lean, try and stay lean, try and use the little resources that you have. You know, there's a saying that says, start where you are, use what you have. And this is very important because most times when you're starting out, you have really little resources available to you. And that would be a challenge if you are not able to use those resources. It means that when you have access to even larger resources, you might not even you might not be able to use those resources well, right? Also, two advice I'll give entrepreneurs, in 2025 going forward is that you need to adapt. You need to be able to adapt quickly and build resilience, right? Because there's a lot of local nuances that you need to consider. First of all, customer behavior in Nigeria and Africa is different from what you get in other parts of the world. We're essentially in a low trust society. So if you're building solution, especially let's say in fintech, you need to look at how you could offer things like USSD, cash on delivery, and even leverage on existing agent network that the likes of Money Points and other digital finance or fintech companies are using. Also in Africa or in Nigeria, there's a lot of infrastructural gap. So when you're building products, this year or going forward, it's important to design for offline use, right? So you need to design for situations where whether there's power, there's internet or not, your solution or your product will still be accessible. Another key point is to always be price sensitive. The economy is a little bit tough now, so you have to build products that are, price sensitive in nature. You could explore tiered pricing, pay as you go, or even micropayments so that you'll be able to bring down the high cost or upfront cost of interacting with your solution. And then my last point would be generally leveraging local partnerships. Because if you look at it, you can't do it alone. And with partners, you could go far. You could even do 100 times more than you could do if you were trying to build or do it alone. And partnership doesn't just mean looking outwards to just organizations that complement what you're providing. Partnerships could also mean collaborating with community leaders, influencers, or distributors for faster adoption. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ahmed, for your contribution. We discussed the future trends and also we discussed what entrepreneurs should be aware of in 2025 if they aim to launch business in Nigeria. That was very insightful and interesting discussion. And we are moving on and we would like to discuss our next questions. I would like to invite Obi to join us and make introductions about yourself. Obi, good afternoon. If you can share a few words about your background and how do you relate to your startup world in Nigeria?
Hello, Slava. Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon. My name is Obi. I'm a founder and serial entrepreneur, currently running a program, AI for Africa think tank. That is looking after creating awareness and training skills, digital skills to African or youth in general. Bringing out the best in them because we have a lot to offer. And I've been in the industry for over 2 decades now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Obi, for your introduction. Today we discuss opportunities for investors and entrepreneurs in Nigeria. And we know that Nigerian startup ecosystem is one of the top startup destinations in Africa. And what do you think are the key factors that made Nigerian startup ecosystem positioned as a high potential environment for entrepreneurs, and especially to other African or emerging markets?
Thanks, Leva. I will start with this one liner. Yeah. If you want to see tomorrow's billion user opportunities in Africa, look straight to Nigeria. And here is why. We start with the why we're called the giant of Africa, with very, very young market. So Nigeria counts over, okay, to be specific, 200 and over 230 million people. And that is more than Kenya, Ghana, and South Africa put together. Um, and the median age is 18, just 18, you know. So that's a country size of Gen Z's focus group. You can imagine what can happen in that kind of environment. Yeah. So for perspective, Kenya, the I would say the darling of many investors, has over just 57 million people, barely one quarter the size of Nigeria. So a founder can scale nationally before even thinking of crossing borders in Nigeria. So that's a big plus. Then talk about the digital rails. Everyone already uses. So mobile, say for instance, SIM cards or mobile users is equal to about 90% of the population. So smartphones are now mainstream, even in small towns in Nigeria. Can imagine what we can do with that. And Nigeria moved in exchange or payments, instant payments, over 700 billion dollars just last year by NIBSS. So all-time high and bigger than most countries' entire GDPR. So it's a big thing for, so founders can build cash in, cash out, credit scoring, and AI tools on top of data and rails, that can already touch almost every adult in Nigeria. So it's a huge opportunity for investors and everyone. You talk about the capital that still flows even regardless of all these um, slow in capital investment. No, Nigeria still regains number one spot in VCs deals in Africa in 2024, last year, according to Partech. So even the slower year, local startups still attract approximately 400 million in disclosed equity. That's more than Egypt or South Africa. So, and new unicorns are still coming out. Money Point crossed $1 billion mark 6 months ago. So the global fund may be cautious, which is a risk factor. But specialist for African funds or family offices are new. This year, the Nigerian pension funds are stepping in. So things are happening, and people will be missing out it alone. And talk about the policies. There's this Nigerian Startup Act 2022 that just came live. So startups can get up to 5 years of corporate tax holidays. Investors can actually earn 30% tax credit on money they put in. Central Bank of Nigeria has just made a new electronic FX machine system, a matching system that publishes real-time rates. It closes gap between the official and the strict prices that has been a problem for so long. So this is letting founders to repatriate capital more easily. So less friction, clear exits, and more prediction returns than many of our neighboring markets. And I also like to mention that Nigeria sends more founders to Y Combinator than any other African country. Even the lean 2024 last year's winter batch had 2 Nigerians in fintech, and that's where I live. I live in the UK. That's where they wire a whole lot of money, over 20 billion last year, back into the country, and this money always find its way into angel rounds and venture funds. So you pay all this time with local salaries, one third of which is one third of Cape Town. You get startups that are capital efficient from the one in Nigeria. I would say, closing up, huge young market in Nigeria, and we're getting to that world class digital rails where networks, mobile network have penetrated even the small towns and cities, and then with other facilities coming in, training and all that, there's lots of steady capital that can match with the talent if channeled properly. And there's friendly rules that's coming into play as well, and lots of builders. So compared with other emerging hubs, Nigeria lets you test at scale, faster, and cheaper. And that's we can't deny the currency risk and the power cuts, but smarter founders still turn that into products, and then smarter investors join them early to be part of the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Obi. That was very insightful discussion on Nigerian startup ecosystem as a hub and opportunities for entrepreneurs as a top destination in Africa. I also would like to ask Obi the question about the impact investment. We see the rise across the globe, the rise of impact investment, trends and opportunities for entrepreneurs and equally investors. Do we see the same trend in Nigeria? Do we see that investors actually seeking more opportunities combining financial returns and measurable, sustainable, and environmental goals?
Yeah, I would say yes. If, like I mentioned, picture a country of 280 million people with median age of 18 years. That's a giant class of young minds looking for power, looking for jobs and digital tools to get ahead. Yet one in four adults is still shut out of formal finance, and daily blackouts push families to noisy generators and all that. So what's impact investing? It's money that chases profit and proof of good, to put it simply, at the same time. So global funds managing over 1.57 trillion now carry an impact level. So that means that in Nigeria, in April, the last April, there's a Lagos-based energy company that pulled over 18 million Series B from investors like BII and Breakthrough Energy to lease solar systems that are already cut across 23,000 tons of CO2. And last month the government of Nigeria signed a contract of over 200 million deal with Light for 400 solar mini grids. This is enough to cater for about 1.5, 1.7 to 2 million rural Nigerians. So this is working. It's already happening in Nigeria. There's also a fund for inclusive, to include women, that looks after women, for fund Black women-owned businesses in health, fintech, and I think agriculture as well. And Nigeria is getting ready for that, and founders now walk into pitch rooms with two dashboards, one for revenue and one for impact. So like talking about how many farmers you reach and how many women hired. Those numbers sit in the same slide deck as ARR these days, and it's taking place as well. It's happening already in Nigeria. So what are the investors? I think what investors are looking for to help people to forge ahead is clear, measurable outcomes, using the right framework. If a fintech if you're a fintech venture claiming that it will bank 5 million people, and people would like to see quarterly proof of what you're doing. Don't just say 5 million people. You have to pay concession money from the commercial flow on, to the risk early pilots, like mini grids. Local partnerships are very important nowadays. Right of way to fiber, for instance, or state level power licenses. So locals generally unlock them faster because they know the area, local content. Okay. And it goes on and on. So the founders will learn to tie their prices to the value they create. Like I said before, you don't just say you're banking. So they want to say, investors want to see the proofs. That's my encouragement to founders to make it happen. It's already happening. Most funds are looking for impact as part of their investments. So Nigeria's biggest headache is like power cuts, financial exclusion, youth unemployment, could be also their biggest investment stories. Yeah. So the investors are encouraging to back they want to back the teams that are fixing those issues, and you earn returns and bagging the right to real world change. Doing so. So to your question, it's really taking place in Nigeria, but it's encouraging the startups to start learning how to put the right data in place, then the investors to open their mind and able to get involved as early as possible.
Thank you so much, Obi. That was very insightful discussion on impact investment in Nigeria and the trends we see across investment landscape from investors. I also would like to invite Sylvester to join us. And first of all, Sylvester, if you can introduce yourself and share a few words about your background and what's your relation to a startup world in Nigeria. Sylvester, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me here. All right. So, my name is Sylvester. I am a venture capital and private equity investor. I'm based in Lagos, Nigeria, and a quick background. I first worked as an entrepreneur right out of college. I worked started four businesses by the time I turned 25, and had some good wins, some losses, but gained a lot of knowledge about entrepreneurship, about investing, about the business landscape. I was based in Canada at the time, and then I moved to Nigeria. um, when I came into Nigeria, I moved into the world of high finance. I started working in investment banking. I worked in investment banking for about 3 years. From there, I went to consulting for another 3 years. And from there, I went into venture capital for 3 years. And then started up like a family office in Lagos, Nigeria, where we do investments in startups, investments in um, publicly listed companies, and some investments in tech as well.
First of all, I would like to ask you my first question about why Nigeria considered as a unique and strategic location for startup investment comparing to other African or other emerging markets, and what aspects of Nigerian ecosystem make it particularly attractive for investors today.
All right, thank you. That's a great question, and that that comes up more frequently than you would think. All right. So Nigeria, for those who are just being introduced to Africa for the first time, Nigeria is the largest market in Africa, mostly because of its very large population. We have about, give or take, 200 to 250 million people. So that makes it an interesting place to come to. Now, before 2014, or before the advent of serious venture capital coming into Africa, there was a lag in terms of infrastructure, the right infrastructure, to balance the amount of innovation, or to balance the amount of technology that could be consumed, or that could be used on the continent. So Nigeria started building that infrastructure, and then towards about 2014, we started seeing serious venture capital coming into Africa. That was tracked by Partech. So Nigeria, because of its vast population and because of the infrastructure that was built in place, seemed like the largest place. Um, Most estimates, as of last year, most estimates have it as, it has the highest mobile penetration in Africa. Now, the important thing about the mobile penetration is that that is the best metric to see how far technology can be used within the continent, and within the country, and how far it's being consumed, how many people are using it. So if you at we're at 85%. So that means 85%, of about 200 million people have access to a mobile phone. Now, while that is a great metric, the next metric you need to look at internet penetration. So it's one thing to have a mobile phone, it's another thing to have access to the internet. So about half that access to the internet, and we've seen from research that about 92% of adult males actually use that amount of data, or have access to the internet. So when you have people who are internet savvy, you have people who are, it's a young population, you have a lot of males, or a lot of entrepreneurs looking into starting businesses or running businesses. It's a market that's primed for investment. So now that there's technology, how best can you use technology to improve the lives of people, which is basically the whole point of technology: make people's lives easier, make lives better. And once you see that a portion of the population is on the internet, or is using the internet for business, for commerce, for entertainment, lots of people run businesses on WhatsApp, on Facebook, on Instagram. So it seems like these people are primed for the taking. The first thing people want to find out is, how can we get more people included in financial services, which is the whole advent of financial inclusion using financial technology. So, yeah, I think those reasons, that's why the large population we have in Nigeria, as well as the large population of people, or the large percentage of people who are, the large portion of people that are on the mobile network, and as well as a large portion of people who are actually on the internet. So large population, vast amount of people who have access to a mobile network, and then the vast amount of people who are on the internet, and it's the largest on the continent as of today. That's why Nigeria is the prime location.
Thank you so much for your very interesting insights on why Nigeria is one of the top destinations when it comes to African continent and maybe some other emerging markets. Now, I would like to step into a bit more specific and detailed discussion about early stage investments. Do we see any trends in early stage investing in Nigeria today? And do we see any maybe specific sectors which we see that very promising for foreign investors right now?
I would say that the best, there are a couple. Have financial services, and that's just trying to get people. There's a large percent of the market that does of there's a large percentage of the market that does not use banking services, or they don't have bank accounts. So they don't have access to funding, they don't have access to credit, they don't have access to transact online. They're basically in the dark. So the most promising aspect is always financial technology, either making payments easier, making payment gateways, making payments faster, making cross-border payments possible, making e-commerce more seamless. Whatever can be done to make sure that transactions can be done online or to support financial transactions, that's number one. Number two and three would be um, agriculture and healthcare. Agriculture because people have to eat, and any way you can support the smallholder farmers, any way you can integrate technology into the agricultural sector to make things faster, either to make the transportation of goods easier, either to make access to organic products quicker, either to make even for storage of these things, storage of agricultural products, or even making large scale farming possible, access to people who are going to take these products, access to people who can convert these products from raw materials into finished goods. So anything across that value chain in agriculture, if there's a way technology can be injected, or if there's any startup that is looking into those pain points in agriculture and trying to find a tech related or tech infused solution, that's something anyone would be interested in. The third thing I would talk about is healthcare. Everybody needs to be in the best, you know, needs to be their best self, show up in their best self, and health is wealth. So any infusion of technology into healthcare, either access to healthcare insurance, access to telemedicine, access to better medication, access to palliative care, curative care, preventive care, anything along those value chains. That's always interesting. The fourth and fifth, which I can quickly add, would be edtech. So anything that brings in technology to make education better. We have a very large youth population, and these people are interested in building themselves up. They're interested in advancing their skill set, improving their skill set, improving their accessibility, their global opportunities. That's something that people are actively looking into. So if you have something that can tap into what youth can gain from in terms of increasing their knowledge base or increasing the skills that they have, that is something to look into. The fifth thing is logistics. The transportation infrastructure in Nigeria isn't great, and sometimes that impedes agriculture, it impedes transportation, it impedes a lot of things. So if there's a way to improve the logistics in terms of supporting e-commerce or supporting um, transportation of goods, transportation of services, or even people commuting from point A to point B, if there's any way to improve that with the use of technology, that is fantastic. So we have services, financial inclusion, we have agriculture, we have healthcare, we have logistics, and we have education.
Thank you so much, Sylvester. I would like to invite Oluwole to join our discussion. Please, if you can join us and share a few words about your background and what's your relation to a startup world. Oluwole, good afternoon.
Thank you for having me, and it's an opportunity to be part of today's conversation. My name is Wole Ogunlade. I've spent over 15 years building products and growing businesses across fintech, SaaS, energy, and of course, very recently in the power sector. In the last 15 years, I've led teams across Nigeria and other parts of the world, launching products that have generated over $200 million in revenue. Today, I'm quite excited about what is happening in the world of AI and how smart policies can unlock big opportunities in Africa. I love sharing, about startup, what can make them to scale. I've been an operator for over 10 years now with executive functions across the different organizations I've worked for. I'm excited about what is happening in Africa. So I would love to take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your introduction. We discussed investment opportunities for foreign investors in Nigeria And one of my first questions is about the angel and seed funding landscape in Nigeria. So, how international investors approach angel and seed investment in Nigeria today? And do we see that type of startups or founders are drawing early stage capital? And what should investors be aware of entering local startup ecosystem when they aim to invest into startups in Nigeria?
Great. So that's a bundle of questions. I'll do my best to unpack it as much as possible. One interesting stat I would like to share is that 79% of investors try to use Western playbook or something they have been familiar with in their existing market when they approach Africa, particularly Nigeria. I believe that what it takes to win from an investor standpoint is to come with a mindset of local partnership. I have a few tips that can help investors looking to invest in Africa. The first one is, conducting targeted due diligence through specialized local firms that can enable them to overcome challenges related to the early stage startup initial limited track records. So let me put it this way. Compared to other markets or geography, Nigeria suffers from what I would call very poor data collections. So it's important for any foreign investor to work with a local provider or partner that can help them to, unearth opportunities, even when it seems that a particular startup, or an experiment doesn't have the numbers. I feel that engaging local partner goes beyond the due diligence because it also enables any international partner to understand the local nuances of a market, and some things are better experienced than said, which is where local partnership comes a lot. I believe that today there are quite a number of experienced local partners like Lagos Angel Network, which is quite popular, and I believe that is also an African version of it that can help any international investor to approach with caution and with the insight of a local partner. I also see the need to diversify investment. Fintech is quite hot. Majority of the investment that came into the continent are into fintech company, but an investor should also diversify their portfolio so that they could capture opportunities that could be relevant to them. I feel the need to talk about regulation. In fact, in a recent role where I was the managing director of a digital banking platform, I saw how the regulatory landscape in Africa, especially in Nigeria, should be approached. So when you're trying to invest in an entity, you should be sure that they have crossed all their I's and dotted all the T's so that you invest in an opportunity that is ready to take off and not one that will be burdened by a lot of local challenges. I feel that works, when it comes to what an international partner should do. I think the other side of your question was about what international investors should know about the local landscape in terms of risk reward dynamics. I believe that for an investor, depending on their horizon and the perspective of the fund, it's always a good idea to think about your investment in the long-term horizon. I believe that right now there are no quick exit opportunity yet, but for anyone that stays around in the market, and we have some success story that speaks to that already. 5 years horizon, I think that is great if you are looking at great return. Specifically about industry of interest, I've been in the tech space for 13 years, so I'm a bit biased to tech. I believe fintech is still a great place to invest, depending on what the idea looks like. Ed tech, agri tech, clean tech, e-commerce. It's a bit dicey, but if you know how to play it right, there are opportunities to innovate across these tech segments. And I believe that as part of the due diligence that any international investor is doing, you should look out for the book of the organization you are interested in working with in terms of what's the attraction like, what's the business model, and how are they addressing core market needs. One easy mistake I want to quickly point out is assuming that tech is going to fix the need of the market in Africa. So it's a good idea, from the standpoint of an investor, to know that there is a clear market need that is being served so that you can be sure there is going to be return. Those are some few things that I need to share. I believe it will help any investor looking to participate in, opportunities in the African sector.
Thank you so much for your contribution. That was very interesting and insightful when it comes to angel and seed investments, especially from international investors. Please stay with us. I also would like to invite Tony to join our discussion. And Tony, if you can please introduce yourself and tell a few words about your relation to startup world in Nigeria.
All right. So I'm Tony Mose. I'm the founder and CEO of Niton. We're currently the third largest B2B digital export solution in Nigeria. We make up a large portion of export going from Nigeria to the US and the UK market, especially when it comes to large scale export. And, basically because of that, we've expanded into South Asia. We acquired a company in Pakistan because we have interest in the South Asian market. And so we recently got into the Canadian market as well. So that's a bit about what we do. So we realized that, in the agri-tech space, being able to just solve the problem of aggregating is not enough. So we went ahead to build another solution that solved the problem of logistics. And then after doing that, we then realized, there's still the problem of access to capital. And then we had to now build a neobank solution to now provide these agricultural manufacturers with access to capital. So at the moment, we are solving a big problem and we're solving it end to end. And that's what we're doing at the moment at Niton.
Thank you so much for introduction. And we also already discussed with Oluvole how foreign investors can start making angel and seed investments in Nigeria. Maybe you also can contribute and maybe share a few thoughts. If there is anything if foreign investors should be aware of when they aim to start investing in Nigeria, maybe there are some specific insights from cultural perspective or something about the local ecosystem perspective you can contribute to.
All right. So speaking from the point of a founder who has stayed in the US, schooled in the UK, and now back home in Nigeria, building a tech solution, there's a lot that has changed. And I think international investors need to understand that the Nigeria that we used to have 5-10 years ago isn't the same. There is a fast growing ecosystem that is really powered by a lot of what have happened in the past. And the truth is that, yes, we can say that Nigeria is the biggest market in Africa, but there are so many intricate parts to how things work in Nigeria that investors need to be aware of what are some of those interests. So, for example, when we talk about logistics, we need to understand that if you're investing in a logistics company, you need to understand that probably for the first couple of years, these companies would have to do a lot of infrastructure investment. They would go the extra mile to make sure that they've built the right infrastructure before they can actually see like the massive growth that they're looking out for, which is what leads to why we say investing in Africa isn't like investing in the US or the UK. You need to be a lot more patient because at the end of the day, there is massive opportunity. So as the African market is untapped, we all know there's as much opportunity in the European market as you would see in Africa because there are so many problems that are yet to be solved, and there is a massive market that has not even been tapped. If you look at the fintech solution market, or maybe when you look at fintech or you look at agri-tech, there are countries in Africa that still are very decentralized. Like there are an entire country with so much opportunity that hasn't been tapped. So when we look at Nigeria, there's a lot of opportunities when it comes to agri-tech, which is the space we play in. And then there's a new branch of new type of founders, which are creative founders who are solving problems, but also speaking up for those industries as well. So not just founders who are tech-driven founders, but founders who have a following. That's like a new wave of.
Thank you so much, Tony. We discussed angel investment and early stage opportunities. My next question would be about the venture capital climate in Nigeria. Do you have any differences of Nigerian VC landscape from other African markets? What makes VC landscape in Nigeria special? Do you have any insights on that?
All right. So definitely the VC landscape in Nigeria is fast growing, and we can give credit to a lot of international investors that have played a role in making local investors more aware of the massive opportunities. So there is now an influx from international investors and then local investors who are VC backed. So what we're beginning to see is that international investors who may not understand the market fully are partnering with local investors who are VC firms and saying, "Oh, we want to venture into the African market. You are already in the African market. How do we, partner up?" Like recently, a company called TLG Group, recently partnered with a VC firm in Nigeria to disburse, I think, about 200 million thereabouts to agri-tech solutions within the fintech space, within the logistics space, and that's because they want to put their trust in VC firms that already understand the market, and so that's basically what we're seeing as a trend that's going on, whereby international investors are partnering with local VC firms to basically push these companies to the next stage, and it's actually working massively because it's a method that has worked and has been repeated severally.
Thank you so much, Tony, for your contribution. I also would like to ask Oli Wally to join us and maybe share a few thoughts about what's the difference between Nigerian VC ecosystem with other African ecosystems. And maybe we have some case studies, some examples of investment deals or any venture capital firms present in Nigeria. What makes it special? Do you have anything to mention?
Yes, so that's a great question. When you talk about Nigeria, you are looking at a population of over 200 million, depending on the stats you're looking at. Some say it's well over 200 million people. And in terms of, investment, Nigeria has proven to be the destination of choice, with way over more deal flows into Nigeria as at 2024, more than any other African country. And when you also look at it in terms of scale, we have more unicorns, in the Nigerian market. So Nigeria really dominates the African investment landscape more than any other African market. Even though there are, some takeaways in similarities in the market. And one of the things I've personally observed is why people look at Africa as one country. You are essentially looking at 52 different markets. Even when you break Nigeria market down, you see that you have to approach, each region of the country with a different mindset. And that's the kind of perspective that investors should have in mind when they are looking at African market. You are not looking at a lump of, 1 billion people. You're looking at diverse needs in the market. As of today, Nigeria really leads the ecosystem. I know the tide is changing now, in terms of deal flows, but because of the huge numbers that Nigeria has as a population size, that's a key factor. I also see, quite a number of progress in terms of exposure of existing founders in the Nigeria ecosystem. So, VCs should look at Africa with this lens, that the opportunity really exists. I think there is an important stat I checked somewhere that shows that Nigeria is delivering at least 2.3x return, more than other markets. So there is a reason to really look into Africa for investment as an investment destination. And Nigeria really does not need to prove that it's a good investment destination. We have some success stories to prove. Money recent 1 billion valuation after raising their Series C. It's a clear indication of that. That happened in 2024 when they raised $110 million. Paystack successfully exited in 2020, which really, marked the beginning of, taking Africa seriously in terms of valuable exit. But that's not the only success story we have. Flutterwave is worth over $3 billion. Andela is a unicorn. Jumia used to be a unicorn and is also publicly listed now. We have OPay in the market. So we have quite a number of success stories, and we have talents that can make it possible. So I feel seriously that investors should, understand the right markers that they should use to identify the opportunities in the market, even beyond the exit and the billion-dollar valuation that Africa and of course Nigeria specifically has produced so far.
Thank you so much for your contribution. That was very insightful and interesting discussion regarding the VC landscape in Nigeria. And also, I would like to follow up our conversation in relation to the support and some kind of the public sector supporting investment clients. I would like to invite Tony to join and continue our discussion about the public and private collaboration. Do we have some examples between the public sector and investment bodies when they collaborate? Actually, do we see any kind of collaboration between government agencies, incubators, any accelerator programs, and how these policies in Nigeria they actually shape investment climates in the country and region? Because investors don't look only at specific companies, but also they look at the regulatory frameworks and the conditions ecosystem can offer. Do we have any detail on what's happening from regulatory perspective and government and public sector support for the investment?
All right, great one. So first of all, we can see that the government is actually very hands-on when it comes to supporting tech solution. I think the first indication of that was when the government signed in the Startup Act. So the Startup Act didn't exist earlier when they said probably 2 years back. But before then, tech solutions were pushing, innovators were pushing around having a Startup Act that supports startup founders and gives them a level of leverage when it comes to growth in the market. And with several conversations, both government agencies and then private institutions, as well as some of the most amazing startups founders that we had, and then VCs within the ecosystem came together and worked on something we call the Nigerian Startup Act. Today, that act basically puts a lot of tech solutions in a very great place to expand and do amazing things when it comes to taxes, when it comes to licenses, when it comes to even operations, even some of the benefit that government has put in place for some of these tech solutions. So we can see government actively involved in making sure that they are supporting tech solutions across different industries to scale massively. And what we're beginning to see is that governments are now offering to back some of these companies with infrastructure. Maybe if you're in the agri-tech space and you need infrastructure, basically, government is ready to back you with the credit you need to be able to do that. But if you're in the education space, or if you're in the logistics space, they're ready to provide you with trucking or credits at single-digit interest rate to support this, because they've seen in the past that the numbers are showing. Some of these startups are generating massive return for the government and generating massive return for the ecosystem. They are pushing a lot of interest into the country that government can no longer decide to just overlook it. So there's like a massive collaboration between the government agencies and private institutions. Even banks are now coming in to say, oh, how can we support agencies? How can we support startup solutions? How can we support this? And within the regulatory space, there are new laws that are being built to support fintech solutions, whereby you don't necessarily need to be an entire commercial bank or an entire microfinance bank to be able to operate. You can then buy into some of the other solutions that are available that has been made possible. So, and these are some of the things that are not available in other countries, but the Nigerian government is actively playing a role to make sure that startups within the Nigerian ecosystem are doing exceptionally well, and they are scaling even beyond the Nigerian borders to other countries. And that's why you would see a Nigerian startup grow for 18 months, and next thing they're in Rwanda, they're in Kenya. That is because the Nigerian government is playing a massive role to make sure that some of these opportunities are there, and we are seeing it evidently in the growth so far.
Thank you so much for your contribution. That was discussion about our opportunities for public and private collaborations in Nigeria. We are moving on, and I would like to invite Esther to join our discussion. Esther, good afternoon. If you can introduce yourself and share a few words about your relation to startup world in Nigeria.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Esther Uche, and I'm the founder of Friend and Pal. So, Friend and Pal is currently Africa's first AI multilingual mental health platform. So, we're able to provide mental health support in multiple African languages and round the clock 24/7 as well, through our self help resources and AI companion, as well as access to human therapists as well. So it's a hybrid model of human therapy and AI as well in multiple African languages.
Thank you so much for your introduction. Today we talk about opportunities for entrepreneurs in Nigeria. And entrepreneurs need multiple forms of support when it comes to resource and some kind of mentorship and other facilities essential for the development of their businesses. So my question about access to resource for entrepreneurs in Nigeria, do we have this number of incubator or accelerator or innovation hubs available? How they shape or how do they support entrepreneurs today? Do we have any examples of these programs which are available for entrepreneurs?
I would say yes. I think first thing I would say, in the course of building a startup, choosing the right support program can be a game changer for every early stage founder, right? I think the first thing would be knowing your why, clarity of what you need most at each stage of your development, right? Is it product validation? Is it market access? Is it funding, right? So for us at Friend and Pal, when we launched, we weren't just looking for capital or VC or things like that. What we wanted to do was to understand the market. We needed deep mentorship on market strategy as well, and also how to scale AI models, because what we were building was like strictly for AI in the mental health space. And I would say we prioritize a lot of accelerator programs, and one of which is the Resilience AI. There was the LSETF, that's Lagos State Trust Fund programs. There was the yearly, there were like several other mentorship programs that I can't really remember off my head right now. But I think I would say, oh, there was also the CBC, the one with the Lagos Business School programs that we did, entrepreneurship programs. So this mentorship actually, or these programs or accelerator programs actually helped with tailored mentorships, access to local markets, funding pathways, and yeah, it was really vital for our long-term success, because in barely 1 year after launch of the app, we were able to raise our pre-seed round as well. So it was really vital, and also able to validate our product, what we're building. So we weren't just building a product, but we're able to understand the market segment of what we are building for as well.
Thank you so much for your insights on supporting opportunities for entrepreneurs. And we also know that communities, they play an essential role for developing ideas, connecting the right mentors, investors, and like-minded professionals as well. What's the role of the communities in Nigeria in supporting startup founders? Do you have any again examples of these communities which provide that level of support? Do we have again any kind of specific trends or the specific details about these programs available, communities available in Nigeria?
Yeah, there are. So currently, the Nigerian entrepreneur scene is it's buzzing, and Lagos still leads when it comes to access to a lot of communities, access to network, talent. But I think right now, Abuja is also fast becoming a policy and tech convergence zone, as well as cities like Ibadan. I think I also heard about Port Harcourt as well, and these states have been able to nurture like strong niche ecosystems in the agri-tech, edtech industries as well. So I would say for communities, we have communities like Builders Cabal. So Builders Cabal is like a community for founders who are looking to get support, validation. We have communities like Consonance as well. Yeah, communities like that has been also super helpful in my journey. We have also ecosystem events that we have in Nigeria time to time, Beyond Limits, Acts of Technology, Tech About town halls, also local pitch events that we also do have here and there. So there have been a lot of amazing support communities that I know that has been instrumental in my personal journey as well. So I would also say it's not just about the community, it's also being able to provide value. What are you actually giving to these communities and what actually are you getting back from them? So one thing is to be a part of a community and being able to plug into these communities. Another thing is being able to provide value to these communities as well. There are also university-based hubs. There is also the regional network ecosystems like Startup South. These people are actually very big on a lot of support for founders in the southwest regions as well. So I would also say LinkedIn, as much as we move on to accept that, but LinkedIn is also a very, you can get a lot of amazing support communities from LinkedIn as well. So it's more about positioning, right? How are you able to position yourself to meet the right audience and the right people and get the right support? I would also say the Seed Stars, I was part of the Seed Stars alumni, and I would say it was also a great community for me. It was also quite instrumental as well. Yeah, I think that these are some of the communities that I could actually recall. The founders, builders cabal, the consonants, like that has been super helpful in every um, founder's journey.
Thank you so much, Esther, for your contribution and discussion on the role of the communities and other supporting ecosystem players in developing and fostering the entrepreneurial ideas and the businesses. We moving on and we come back to a discussion of investment climates and investment landscape in Nigeria. We discussed the angel investments and early stage investments and equally about VC investments. But what investors also interested to know what are the exit pathways and what are the exit opportunities in Nigerian ecosystem. I would like to invite Sylvester to join us. What are the exit opportunities for venture capitals, for private angel investors? Do we see any success stories or emerging trends in exit strategies when it comes to Nigerian ecosystem?
All right. Thank you. All right. Yeah, like you rightly mentioned, one of the most important things to any investor is, okay, I put my money in. Now, how do I get my money out? Hopefully, with a 2x, a 3x, 10x return. Um, so one of there are three pathways, right? It's either you sell your stake or your equity to another fund, which will be secondaries. You can sell it to a corporation, which will be an acquisition or a merger, or you could put yourself on a local exchange, which would be an IPO. I think in Nigeria, what has been successful, or I did a research paper about 2 years ago where we looked at exit pathways across Africa, and the most prevalent we saw was in acquisitions or mergers, and there's something Wally mentioned that I'd like to piggyback off, and that was the importance of understanding that Africa is a totally different market when it comes to investing or even in venture capital. Most times foreign investors look into Africa or look into Nigeria hoping to replicate their playbook here, but it's a different ball game altogether. One of the most important things you need to understand about investing in Africa or even in Nigeria is that the a lot of these ventures need patient capital. So it's not the same process of 10 years, a 10-year fund. Like, so I invest 5 year time, 5 years, I want to pull my money out, which is basically the Silicon Valley playbook. Money in year one, year five, I exit with a good return. That happens, but more often than not, you need more time for these companies to grow. And there's a school of thought that I appreciate, which looks at looking less at investing in African startups uh, achieving unicorn status, instead of looking at them to achieve maybe a zebra status. Zebra status is that, okay, like 100 million valuation, as opposed to looking at a 1 billion or 1 billion plus valuation. Most times people are looking at 1 billion so that they can get as much money as they want out of it, or they can get as much returns as they would, that would make their investment worth it. While there are unicorns in Africa, there are a number of them, and Wally mentioned a couple of them, and there are a lot of success stories of foreign investors investing in startups in Africa. Like he rightly pointed out, in 2020, Stripe acquired dollars, right? And that was amazing. And then there was, I think there was also 500 million when acquisition. So there's an African startup that is looking to expand, or is looking to expand its footprint or its offerings across Africa, and acquires one of his competitors, or acquires one, if it's one of his comparables, either in the same local market or in another African country. So that has been the trend in terms of exits, and a lot of investors have been happy with that movement. So it's like helping, aside from making an investment, you've made an investment in such a way that the company has been able to scale into other markets at the time when you are exiting the investment. So I think the most realistic is to look forward to an acquisition by a local competitor or by an international competitor. But then again, I would emphasize the importance of being patient. Africa needs patient capital. It's not the same playbook that applies in the US or in the UK or in the West that applies in Nigeria. You have to be patient. But then, as I say, the patient dog, it's the fastest bone. So if you're patient, if you work with the founder and pull out, look how you can be valuable to these startups. Because another thing that a lot of startup founders are looking into is, no value can you add? Can you give them access to talents, to people, to markets? Can you give them access to more, a wider audience? Can you give people that they can collaborate with? So beyond just investing capital, what else can money out is an African competitor or an African business making an acquisition to expand its footprint, or an international company coming in to acquire a business to enter into the African market. But in terms of IPOs, that's not very popular, because sometimes the capital markets can't carry a lot of capital market can't carry the weight of the size of the valuation of the company coming in. So that's less likely. But secondaries and mergers or an acquisition is the best ways to go. Are the best ways to go.
Thank you so much, Sylvester, for your insights on that opportunities for investors to exit and to bring up returns for investments. We are moving on, and my next question would be to Obi. Obi, if you can join us, what are the future trends for investments in Nigeria for next 3-5 years? Maybe not only about the sector, but maybe overall trends on the markets, maybe some economic trends, any topic trends, anything which you feel is essential to know for investors who want to look at the 3-5 years horizon.
Thank you so much, Sleva. Once again, great question. Yeah, I'll just try to look at the different sectors. Possibly, let's start with digital infrastructure. You can't really stream or code. I mean, you can, but it's always better to have local servers and which create fast pipes to do your coding, trading online, and streaming like you're rightly doing now. And I'm a big advocate of African data for Africa. That sovereignty that's been missing so much, and some interesting changes is coming. Like Equinix is pouring, I think, $140 million into a new data center just outside Lagos, just to build on it on their own main one buyout. and I found that interesting and quite fascinating. Um, there's also government effort to ensure that 70% of the 70% of the population it got broadband by this year. Actually, it remains to check how that is working out now. But we already have about 4 million users of 5G in Nigeria. So things are panning out. So digital infrastructure is a good place to look into. Edge data centers, rural fibers, and things like that. And investors can look into this and position themselves like other speakers have rightly said. Look at people on the ground. How do we position ourselves to invest well and peacefully and more information? There's no way you know what's it's going on in a country, not to talk about a very complex economy like Nigeria. You really need local content. You need people on the ground to function. And another sector I would like to, this personal interest, renewable energy. Half of Nigerians still rely on petrol generators. Clean distributed power unlocked, like we all know, it will unlock lots of factors, sectors, and help a lot of these startups and businesses to grow quicker and faster. Um, well, the government, Nigerian government is trying to do something. It depends to find out down the line if it's on paper or actually happening. That they're trying to move well ahead of provision of renewable energy, from I think 22% today to 50 of the grid by 2030. And then this deal I mentioned before with We Light, over 200 million deal that to build solar 400 solar mini grids. So I think that they are really working and trying to do something in that sense. And I'll encourage investors to use concessional money, and to de-risk pilots, then scale with commercial debt or equity and things like that. And remember that we renewable energy. That's, you mentioned economic, but that's increased. So every liter of diesel as displaced with this renewable energy can earn a very good credit when you tap into carbon markets in that sense. So it's all negative, positive to get involved. The other sector which everybody knows about is artificial intelligence. I think it's a big one. It's gonna change the way we think, change the way everybody works. People cry they're gonna lose their job, but I don't think people are losing their job. Job will change. So it's just people that knows how to use AI to do the job that will take your job if you're not doing anything. Um, and for the investor, it's about positioning themselves and doing your own due diligence with the help of local people. You know, AI is leapfrogging talent gaps in health, finance, and agriculture. And Nigeria is not, they just launched a national AI strategy last month, aiming to be the West African AI hub in the coming years, and hundred of uh, million naira from Google and other tech hubs to support startups and then some mentorship and credit startup in AI landscape to be able to scale and do what they're not supposed to do. Again, it's a good place for um, investors to look into working with the people uh, on the ground. So new pipes, clean power, smarter softwares, back founders who combine all these three, and you will not just making money. You will be helping 200 million young Nigerians to learn and to work and thrive in what they're doing. Okay, it's a good window to tap into. So and a good time to build together.
Thank you, Obi. We discussed the future trends for next 3-5 years as an opportunity window for foreign investors. But now we are in 2025. We also discussed a few things about what investors should be aware of. But do you have any additional points of what investors should keep in mind if they want to invest in Nigeria this year in particular? Any essential takeaways we can bring to the audience?
Like everyone is saying, is just being able to do the right due diligence. I think the main important thing is to work with people on the ground, making sure that all the numbers tallies. There's always complexity when you're going into a new economy or new place. You're not sure of what's going on. So it's and what we are trying to do at AI for Africa is to be that a kind of sieve to be able to have some of these our researchers that have done great designs and products, make sure they are vetted and make sure they have the right kind of startups, market fit and everything, so that when you talk to them, you're not just talking to people, raw from beginning, starting to polish their pitch deck and all that. You have we have already done something in that regards, and I'm hoping that most of these tech hubs in Nigeria and venture studios are doing the same to get people ready, because what AI is bringing is huge, and I can see lots of investors turning in to come on, and it's not possible without people on the ground. So I think it's just making sure you use the right people, watching the local content, what's happening in the searching doing your own research, but most importantly, identifying someone else or a group or organization to work with in order to make the right decisions. But I think Nigeria is ripe for investment. AI is going to make it easier for people to monitor in some senses what their investments is doing. So yeah, I think we're on the right track. It just being able to use the right kind of people and organizations to cut that risk of jumping inside unknown in that sense.
Thank you so much, Obi. That was the discussion about the key takeaways for investments in 2025 in Nigeria. It was enjoyable experience to discuss today investment opportunities and also opportunities for foreign entrepreneurs in Nigeria. Thank you so much to all of our experts and contributors who shared key essential insights of how foreign entrepreneurs and investors can step into Nigerian startup ecosystem today and also in next 3 to 5 years. Thank you so much, everyone. That was Eligent TV broadcast focused on Nigerian startup ecosystem. Stay tuned for more sessions.